Support provided by Walters Papillon Thomas Cullins, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.
Whoa, excuse me. Thank you very much, Ms. Carlisle, for those kind words. And I really want to thank the Rotary leadership and membership for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I can't tell you how honored I am to have been asked to speak here, because I know how involved all of you are in our city and how much you personally invest in our future. Also, before I begin, I would like to recognize my fellow board members in attendance. I think Mr. Howard is here. Has Mr. Lannis made it? I have to tell you, we always expect him to be late. And also Ms. Freiberg, who many years was on the school board and gave so much to our system. I would also like, there are many, round of applause, thank you. I would also like to recognize, I see several school board employees out in the audience, so if you would please stand just very quickly, I'd like to have you recognized. Thank you all for your service. I would like to start off by saying that since I joined the EBR school board, I have learned one thing, that everyone has an opinion about everything the school system does, and they know just how it should be done. I know, because I was just like everyone else before I joined the board. But I've also learned actually how little I knew about how the system operated and what was in it. So today I would like to start with an overview of who we are, what we do, and how we educate the children in this great city. I would then like to discuss our successes and also our current and future challenges. Quickly, as I paint this picture, I want to give you just a couple of definitions around charter schools, because I know that's a subject that always comes up. Today in our system, we have a Type 1 type charter school. It's called a Type 1, which is authorized by EBR, and under our, we monitor their performance. There's also Type 2 charters, which are charted by the Bessie board, and Bessie monitors those. And there's also a Type 5 charter, which are schools that were taken over by Bessie and are now in the Recovery School District, which is also overseen by Bessie. And Mr. Dana Peterson is here in the audience, and he is the superintendent of the Recovery School Board District. So if I say anything wrong, make sure you tell me. Okay. Now for the big picture. The total school-age population of children within EBR is about 75,000 students. That's how many in our entire parish. Approximately 16,000 of those, or 21%, attend non-public schools, private, parochial, whatever, with the remaining 59,000 students in some form of a public education. Of those 59,000 students, about 2% are in the Baker City system, 8% are in the Central system, 10% in the Zachary system, 10% in the Bessie-controlled Type 1 and Type 5 charters. That means about 70%, or over 41,000 students, are included in the EBR system. Within those 41,000 students, about 4,500, or 11% of those, attend Type 1 charters as authorized by EBR, leaving us with the, what I call the traditional public schools, with about 37,000 students. Of the EBR students, and that includes both Type 1 and our traditional, that 41,000 students, about 73% are African American, 12% are Caucasian, 11% are Hispanic, and about 4% are Asian, and a sprinkling of a few others. We have about 50 different nationalities and things within our school system. Also within the EBR population, there are over 3,800 students with disabilities, or about 9% of our population are students with disabilities. And our economically disadvantaged students, as defined by being eligible for free and reduced lunch by the federal government, represent about 76% of our total enrollment. So now you have a picture of what our student population looks like. Who actually teaches and takes care of those 37,000 students? The EBR public school system employs about 5,600 people within our district. About 3,200 of those are certified faculty and administrators within our schools, assisted by about 800 people as school-based staff. Approximately 650 students, people serve in our transportation services department. We have about 450 people in our child nutrition services, which feed breakfast and lunch to most students, and some of those programs go through the summer, and some of them include evening meals. We also have about another 275 people in the central and district office staff that have teaching certificates, and about 175 central and district office staff without teaching certificates. We have over 4,500 retirees receiving health care benefits from our district. When you add that, plus all the many other contractors such as Aramark, who handles our facilities and groundskeeping, suppliers, and etc., we are a major economic force and major employer within East Baton Rouge Parish. So, quick question of where do we put all these students and employees? We operate about 75 traditional schools. We have 13 other district sites which cover everything from the central office to food service and storage. We have 10 Type 1 charters currently in operation today. We have 11 Type 2 charters and 7 Type 5 charters within EBR. Now moving to the academic side, there's been much discussion about letter grade systems for measuring academic performance. While I fully agree that a letter grade is not a perfect way to characterize what happens in the school, I also do not know a better method. Our academic performance scores for this past year, 2018-2019, have not been released. They're due out in November. But our 2017 and 2018 scores, as measured by the state, was a C at 65.4%. The state average was 76.1%, or a B, so we still have a ways to go. The scores in our traditional schools were 8 schools receiving an A, 10 schools receiving a B, 18 schools receiving a C, 20 schools receiving a D, and 18 schools receiving an F. Please note that many of these F schools also include the smaller alternative schools, which are mainly discipline centers, and schools for disabled students. We anticipate a pretty good improvement on that this coming year. In the charter Type 1 charter schools who are under our control, we had 2 C schools, 3 D schools, and 1 F. And several of our charter schools are in the first years of operation, so they do not qualify for a grade yet. So that's kind of what it looks like from the people and places side of things. How do we pay for all of this? The total school system revenue from all sources this year is about $613 million, including our dedicated sales tax revenues. Many people think that the state pays for the majority expense to educate our children through what is called as the minimum foundation program. And please accentuate the word minimum. In reality, the state MFP only pays about $155 million, or only 26% of our total funding. The remainder of that is provided mainly from you, the local sources. Our local sales and use tax, voted upon by you, provide about 30% and $182 million. Local property taxes, again voted on by you, equal about $168 million, or 28%. Other sources, including federal and state grants and other areas of revenue, add up to about another $100 million. All in all, we have, if you include everything from all sources, we have about $14,500 per student to teach them, feed them, and build and maintain facilities to educate them. Now that you have a grasp on the size and the scope of the tasks that we face, I would like to tell you about some areas where I feel we've achieved a level of success or have made some important improvements. I would also like to remind you that education of students is a decade-plus project. and it can take years to see results of significant changes, rather like trying to turn a large boat in the middle of the Mississippi River. Improvements made in early education in early elementary years might not show up in things like graduation rates for many years as those students continue and complete their education. So where do we stand on academics? Many people don't realize this, but we have 11 blue ribbon schools within our EBR traditional school system as named by the U.S. Department of Education. That is out of a total in Louisiana of only 69 public blue ribbon schools. The federal government has passed legislation called the Every Student Succeeds Act, and educators love acronyms, so that's ESSA, E-S-S-A. As part of that initiative, 13 of our lowest performing schools have been grouped into an innovation network and are given additional resources, but also additional responsibilities and expectations. Last year was our first year of operation, and Superintendent John White, who you will be having speak here next month, said in one of his press releases, "We've seen the most dramatic improvements in that parish," meaning us, "and among the lowest performing schools in the state." So we are making changes. It is also important to provide our students and teachers with the proper resources. Last year, EBR upgraded to what is known as a Tier 1 curriculum, which is recommended by the state and is fully aligned with the state standards, meaning it teaches what the students are expected to learn and to be able to do by the end of the year. This transition is difficult, particularly for the faculty, because it requires most teachers to revamp all of their lessons and many of their methods. This year we will be focused on helping faculty more deeply implement the curriculum to obtain even better results through extensive professional development. Also, I talked a little bit about the letter grades. This year, the Department of Education introduced what's called a progress score, in addition to just that letter grade, in order to reward significant academic improvement in addition to just raw achievement. The EBR system earned a district-wide progress score of a B, with over 70% of our schools scoring a B or higher. Just as importantly, or if not more importantly, our subgroups of African American students, economically disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities are showing growth above the state average and are starting to close the achievement gap with their peers. We are also showing progress in the more challenging advanced placement courses. We anticipate over 8,000 class seats will be filled this year in advanced placement classes, a dramatic increase from under 2,000 in 2015. EBR ranks first in the state in the number of students taking AP exams and ranks first in African American participation. We also continue our dual enrollment programs with LSU, Southern, and BRCC to allow our students to earn additional credits. For many, many years, the ACT and SAT annual exams have been a marker for measuring academic performance. We continue to make progress in this area. We just recognized 29 National Merit semifinalists or commended scholars from our 2020 graduating class from 3 different high schools within the parish. Also, a fact that I didn't know till last week, we've had 19 students at Baton Rouge High score a perfect 36 on the ACT exam since 2017. Quite an accomplishment. But we also realize that not every student wants to attend college. And even some of those who do also want to have a marketable skill. In order to help increase those opportunities, we have just opened a state-of-the-art career and technical education center headed by Ms. Summer Dan, who is in our audience. It is a $17 million state-of-the-art facility and provides instruction and certification in areas like carpentry, electrical, HVAC, EMTs, pre-LPNs, networking, cybersecurity, and more. It's an innovative program where students attending CTEC, as I told you we love acronyms, so CTEC, attend their normal school in the morning and CTEC in the afternoon or vice versa. So they're still attached to their school, they still attached to their friends, they still can take the academic courses, but they also can get these career education certificates. In addition, We offer more than 150 different vocational courses throughout our system, and our students in 2018-2019 held over 5,000 industry-based certifications to help their career as they move on. All of these programs are helping keep our school systems meaningful to the students, because I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. That also adds to our graduation rate because they see a reason to come to school and continue going to school. Last year, our graduation rate was 72.4%, which is almost a 6% increase from the prior year. Just as importantly, over 60 or just under 60% of our high school graduates enrolled in college in 2018 and are attending their first semester of college. And that's up 5% from the previous year. So not only are they staying to graduate, we have ever increasing number of them going to college. Speaking of facilities for a little while, after many years of postponing facility requirements and maintenance, we're addressing the issue through a long succession of sales tax programs. A large number of our schools were built in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and many of them have reached their useful life. A school built in 1940 is 80 years old. 3 prior tax plans have rebuilt 17 schools, and the current Jefferson Terrace Academy is under construction now, out behind the Blue Cross Blue Shield building. Also, the flood of 2016 damaged 11 of our sites, but we were quickly able to resume effective education for our students. Total damages, including insurance, FEMA, and internal funds, approach $100 million. You haven't seen a lot of that because our staff, led by Warren Drake, our staff, our principals, our faculty, and many, many others, did such a tremendous job that it really did not disrupt our education progress in this parish. And it's the kind of thing you only read in the papers about things that go wrong. This is something we really did very, very right, and I'm very proud of our entire system for what they did, and you don't hear about it very much. But it was a tremendous accomplishment by what they've done, and I think we're down to one building that's left with still a little bit of work to do. So kudos to everyone involved in that. We also live in a world of technology, and we must equip our students to live in that world, even though it's baffling to many of the old people like myself. We have instituted a one-on-one Chromebook initiative and have over 35,000 Chromebooks within our schools. We're also committed to keeping those up to date, and we're beginning the cycle to replace the original Chromebooks that we've put out in 5th to 8th grade. So not only are they there, but we do have a program and a cycle where we will continue to replenish those Chromebooks to make sure that they stay up to date. We have over 600 Google certified educators within our system, which is the top in the state. We have also implemented a new information platform called J-Campus, which makes it easier and provides for wider academic performance monitoring and reporting. We are truly trying to become data-driven as we go through and measure how we're doing, and more importantly, to identify which students are having trouble so we can get to them earlier and mitigate the problem before it becomes too huge. And one thing that I think particularly Warren Drake is very proud of is throughout the years, our district has maintained and continued the focus on fine arts and athletics, which are places that many other districts have cut to the bone. And we still have a fine, vibrant activities in those areas. I'm proud to say we've also begun to work more closely with our charter schools. We have 10 individual charter schools in operation today, and 7 more authorized and set to open within the next few years. With the help of Ms. Okonski and others, we've implemented a comprehensive district-wide charter policy to ensure consistent oversight by the district with clear and concise standards that both we and the charter operators agree to uphold. We've also created a position of portfolio manager within our district staff to focus on working and deepening our relationships with those charter partners. Finally, on the financial side, After a very large amount of discussion and community input, the board unanimously passed a balanced budget for the year 2019-2020, which represented a $30 million cut from prior spending levels. That was not an easy task, but I think we did it in a very thoughtful and intelligent way, trying to make sure that we keep as much of the resources in the classroom protected so they can be invested in educating our children. We've also passed another 10-year sales tax renewal for facilities, salaries, and discipline programs, and I thank the parish and the people in the parish for giving us that vote of confidence. Now, I talked about things we've done. We have a lot of what we'll call opportunities out there. On the academic side, there's a saying that goes, children learn to read through grade 3 and begin to read to learn in grade 4. I believe that is very, very true. But if you remember my earlier analogy to a very, very large boat trying to turn around in Mississippi River, improvements in the early year grades may take years to fully show up in the data. But we must continue to emphasize early education and early childhood education even more than we have in the past. We must, amen. We must emphasize and grow and support the efforts like the EBR Early Childhood Network, which I imagine most of you have never heard of, but is the second largest network in the state. It includes the EBR Public School System, the Baker City System, Child Care Centers, and Head Starts programs that serve over 5,500 students in our parish to prepare them to enter school. These types of early education and elementary programs are not as visible and just quite not as sexy as the high school programs, but in the end, they're probably more important, and we cannot afford to leave them behind. I mentioned the ESSA program earlier. We must continue to expand this program to more poorly performing schools and provide continued support for those already in the program. This program is very data-driven, and we're looking more deeply for root causes of poor performance. One item that jumped out to me and us as a board, which was totally surprising and totally unexpected, was that the many low-performing schools have a very high student mobility rate. More than one school this year will have over a 50% turnover rate, meaning that less than one half of the students that started this year in that school will actually finish the year in the same school. That is obviously not very helpful to academic performance, and we're trying to look at ways of how we might mitigate that through maybe transportation options to keep them in their original school or other things. We can't dictate where parents move to, but we need to try to do what we can to try to smooth that hump and try to do something to help reduce that number. I have also come to believe that one of the most critical positions in education arena is that of the principal. That person is like a CEO of the school. They have responsibility for everything that goes on at their campus and related off-campus activities. It is a very difficult job and one that is changing dramatically. Being a good educator is not enough anymore. A principal must be able to handle staff HR issues, school finances, parents and students, community outreach, board members like myself, and others. Just as selecting a superintendent is probably the most important job for a school board, the selection of principals is the most important job for the superintendent. As we hold principals more and more accountable, we must give them the ability to actually run their schools. That is why we're giving them more and more autonomy over their schools, giving them flexibility over resources within their budget, the ability to select their staff, and so forth. We also must provide them with the tools to handle these new responsibilities through professional development. They are not trained accountants. They are not trained HR managers. They are generally trained educators. And we expect them to do a lot of things, and we have to give them the tools on which to do that with. It is a very big job. On the facility side, we're just entering the fourth phase of the tax plan. That plan will include combining Buchanan and University Terrace elementary schools into one school on the University Terrace site, acquiring land and building new schools in the faster growing southern part of the parish. Plus 5 more schools will be rebuilt on their current sites, along with major renovations at several other schools. Hopefully by the time we finish this tax plan, we'll have made a first complete pass through most of the schools within our district so we can focus on maintaining what we have. Another area where we have opportunities is technology. I come from the business world and have been very involved in the technology side at my former company, Albemarle. Just like they had, the school system needs to replace old systems that do not work with each other. Many systems are siloed, so you have an HR system, you have this system, you have this system. None of the systems work together. We need to move to a more universal system, not only to provide us better management data for the schools, but also to provide for increased efficiency. The problem is the dollars to purchase and implement those. Many of you are in business, and like many of you, we're in a situation where we can't afford to do it, but we also can't afford not to do it. And so that's going to be an issue facing us as we go forward. On the financial side, the state MFP program was increased this year to provide salary increases to most employees, but it has not been adjusted for years to adequately keep pace with inflation, pay down unfunded accrued retirement liabilities, which, by the way, were caused by the state legislature. We have no ability to change those, energy, or other costs that we face as a district. While I'm a supporter of choice and supporter of charter schools, we have to recognize that the growth of charter schools will continue to divert greater levels of revenues and students, likely growing from the current level of about 21% if you combine the type 1, 2, and 5 to the range of 35 to 40% within 3 to 4 years. That will put us in some budget issues that we will need to address and refocus how we do things. Our entire system must adapt from top to bottom. It will require major changes in how we think, operate, and serve. Cutting corners and slicing fat will not suffice. We will need a major re-engineering of our organization, our systems, and our processes. But through this all, we must be mindful that we must keep the classroom intact. Our main purpose is to educate children, and we can never forget that. With that, we have to face the reality that some schools are operating well below capacity, and we may need to close and consolidate schools because we cannot financially continue to operate and staff them. That is a very, very difficult decision for many good reasons, for both the system and the community, and it must be done very carefully with extended community input. And in spite of all these financial challenges, we must find means to increase pay for teachers and staff. We are facing increasing shortages in qualified teachers across the board, but particularly in the STEM areas, where competition with other job opportunities out in the marketplace is making it more and more difficult to recruit teachers. I mentioned employee retirement costs a little bit earlier. That is a state issue. We do not control the state retirement plan, but we do pay for the unfunded liabilities and the cost of that retirement plan. Currently, for every dollar we pay in salaries, we pay 27 cents to the state retirement plan. And that is before any other benefits. 27 cents, and that's an issue totally outside of our control. And that includes not only certified teaching staff, that includes all staff. Includes bus drivers, food service workers, everyone. So for every dollar in salary we pay, 27 cents goes up the street. It's a big issue, and the MFP has not anywhere near kept up with that. We also have a difficult issue. We need to face health benefits for future retirees. And I emphasize future retirees because we've made commitments to retirees we have today, but we have to change the way we do retiree health care because we need to get our legacy health care costs under control. So we have a lot of issues out there and a lot of things to handle. The next big thing up on our agenda is the superintendent search. I have to say I'm very, very appreciative of our current superintendent, Mr. Warren Drake, who has served us exceedingly well over the past 5 years and have really positioned us for future success. Selection and hiring of a superintendent is the biggest and most important responsibility of the school board. It is what we're elected to do, and we intend to move forward in that process with great intent. We have just tapped JG Consulting from Austin, Texas, to help us conduct that search process. And I can commit to you that community involvement will be an emphasis throughout the process. As a board, we have decided that we will work together as a search committee of the whole. We will not have a separate search committee working outside the board as a whole. The board as a whole will form the search committee and help and use the community input to help guide our criteria for the job and our selection of who we want to fill that position. We will recruit applicants nationwide, and initial indications are that we will have a very good response rate. I would be surprised if we don't have over 50 to 60 candidates applying for this job. Our goal is to have someone named and under contract by the early spring, which is a tight timeline, but entirely doable if we set our mind to it. And we just had the final draft of the contract with the search firm, so hopefully that will be signed and sealed this afternoon, and we will be off and running in doing that. So in closing, I hope I've given you an oversight of what we are and how we do it, where we've achieved some successes, but also outline what are the significant challenges that we have in front of us. And when I say us, I mean all of us, because we're a community, and we're a community school system. And to face these challenges and overcome some of them, we're going to need the help, work, and support of all of you in this room as leaders of our community to help guide us through this and to give us advice and counsel. And I'm sure you will give us not only advice, but you'll give us your opinions too. That's fine. So I thank you very much.
Support provided by Walters, Papillon, Thomas Cullens, LLC, specializing in business litigation and personal injury cases for over 40 years.